And welcome to our webinar. Today's webinar is about how you can save as much as 70% in the costs to submit and process your conflict minerals compliance forms. Next slide. Our agenda for today is, first, we will do an overview of conflict mineral regulations. Then we will talk about the CMRT form sections and processes. Then we'll do some quality checks that involve over 150 different criteria to get your form compliant. And we'll talk about a way to make this easier through APA's AutoGen CM Complete Responsible Minerals System. And then we'll go through a live demo, and then we'll wrap things up with a recap. Next slide. A few housekeeping items. First, everyone but speakers are muted at this time. And this meeting is being recorded and will be shared after the session. There will be a survey at the end of this webinar for you to fill in order to receive a copy of additional documents and provide more detail. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to use the comment section of the webinar. We will get to you at the end if we have time, or we will follow up with you after the session. Next slide. Your presenters today include myself, Karen Neal-Strobel. I'm a supply chain expert with over 36 years in the industry. We also have Sri Venakata, who is our head of regulatory compliance. And we have Rajiv Selvam, who is our conflict minerals expert. Next slide. And APA Engineering, who are we? We are a company that has over 20 years experience in a variety of areas, including compliance, engineering, sourcing of products, and software. We have over 350 customers across the world in the US, Europe, and Asia Pacific. We have ISO certifications, and in the area of compliance, we have software solutions as well as complete turnkey systems where you're able to get the data easily. APA handles the legwork, and you get the information to be compliant. Next slide. All right, let's dive into an overview of conflict mineral regulations. Next slide. Excuse me. First, there's a reason behind the conflict mineral regulations and why they came about to begin with. Some minerals are mined in certain conditions where there is extreme conflict and human rights abuses. A lot of these are armed groups that earn hundreds of millions of dollars every year by trading in conflict minerals. They force local people into mining operations and use force to get these products in order for them to earn the money. It's virtually slave labor. The minerals are then smuggled either out of the Congo or through other areas and through neighboring countries. Then the money that is earned from the sale of these conflict minerals is used for the armed groups' personal profit and to further their violent causes, such as purchasing guns. Next slide. In the US, they decided to work to reduce and prevent the conflict minerals trade through the Dodd-Frank Act. In 2010, President Obama passed the Dodd-Frank Consumer Protection Act, and this meant that any companies that are traded on the US stock exchange have to report on their 3TG. 3TG includes tungsten, tin, tantalum, and gold. That is the 3TG, tungsten, tin, tantalum, and gold. And then in the SEC, as of 2012, there is a final rule requiring everyone to process and submit their information around conflict minerals. So if you have a product that uses any of the 3TG, then you must disclose that information in a Form SD to be provided by the SEC, and you have to do it every year by the 31st of May. Next slide. In Europe, There is a regulation that just began in 2021. It applies to any companies that are importers of 3TG, tin, tungsten, tantalum, and gold, and any of the related products that may contain those items, regardless of where the minerals come from. So that means it doesn't necessarily have to be a conflict country. You have to disclose where your source was. The European Commission will task a group of experts to provide a list of the conflict affected areas so that the EU can monitor this. The list will include areas that currently or could be affected by conflict and have 3TG being smuggled with illegal activities. But the list is non-exhaustive. It does not necessarily include every single area affected by conflict. And so companies still have to report on all sources just to be safe and cover their responsible areas. Next slide. And now to talk a little bit about the form, the CMRT form, its sections and processes, I'll turn things over to Sri Benekata. Sri?
Thank you, Karen. That was a wonderful introduction. Now we shall talk about the various sections in the CMRT and the high-level process of due diligence. Next slide, please. CMRT has broadly 5 different sections. The first section contains company information. Here the company need to add the company name, responsible person contact details. Most importantly, the company needs to enter the declaration scope, whether it is at a company level, product level, or user defined level. And the effective date, which means from which date this CMRT is effective. The second section contains declaration scope questions. There are 1 to 8. There are 8 interlinked questions. For example, one cannot answer as they are DRC conflict free without having 100% responses from their supply chain with the relevant smelters. This means Q3 cannot be yes unless Q6 and Q7 are yes and 100%. The third section contains company level questions, that is 6 questions A to H, that those are required to be answered based on the company's conflict mineral policy. The fourth and important section is list of smelters and the mine location that are present. Those are present in your supply chain while sourcing the 3TG along with the mine information. The fifth section is the product list that needs to be entered only if the declaration scope is chosen as product level, and the list of products need to be entered here. Next slide. While the due diligence as per the OECD is an elaborative process, here we try to compile in 4 different steps. The step 1, that is supply chain tracing. The company has to identify the list of products and its respective suppliers from where you suspect the 3TG may be present. And the step 2 is supplier liaison or engagement. This involves in requesting your suppliers for the CMRT and give them a helping hand if they have any questions. The third one is due diligence or data quality assurance. Once you receive the CMRT from supplier, you have to perform the due diligence as per the OECD guidelines and verify logically if all the questions from 1 to 8 are questions A to H, and even the smelters are properly answered, are logically interlinked or not. APA has made an exhaustive 150 plus checkpoints list to verify them. And the step 4 is the consolidating the CMRTs by combining all the reports whatever we have received. Once you receive the CMRTs and verify the due diligence before you actually submit your response to customer, or even to prepare the analytics required for the Form ST, that is specialized disclosure report, to be submitted to Stock Exchange Commission. And you need to consolidate all the CMRTs and report the worst case scenarios in the CMRT. For example, out of 100 of your suppliers, even if one supplier says they are procuring from 3TG, procuring the 3TG from DRC or covered countries, your response to the question 3 must be yes, and the consolidation interpretation may vary from the US and the Europe. Next slide. Now we shall talk a little bit about the quality check criteria of the due diligence, especially that is implemented in our AutoGen CM software. Next slide. OECD has provided due diligence guidelines to verify the quality of the CMRT received from the suppliers. APA has studied all of them and incorporated all those checkpoints in the APA process, and most importantly in the APA conflict mineral software. We have created more than 150 checkpoints. Every CMRT shall be checked for all these checkpoints automatically if they are either passed or failed. Our software starts checking if the mandatory details are present in, like, company info, or smelters are logical, or whether they are compliant or not compliant as per RMI, and many other logical questions, logical interlinked questions between 1 to 8 and A to H will be shall be checked. So next slide. This so I mean, to be precise, we have 151 check criteria. These are all completely customizable. You can see in the fourth column error type, that is critical error, warning, or no error. These are all the drop downs that you may wanted to choose as per your company criteria. By default, it is set at the highest level of due diligence, and the exception message is adjacent to it, which is in blue color. We can edit the exception message as per your required language, even in multiple languages. And also, if you do not want to run this particular rule, you can just toggle the on off switch. Next slide. Now I request my colleague Rajiv to talk about the conflict mineral software and its live demo. Over to you, Rajiv.
Thanks, Sriram. That was a wonderful explanation. Webinar agenda again for reference. We are now at AutoGen CM, the complete responsible mineral solution. Next slide. Let's see the process flow for AutoGen CM. The major areas are supplier communication, CMRT due diligence, and report consolidation. Insights of supplier communication. APA will request the CMRT from the suppliers through AutoGen CM. Once the supplier CMRT is received, it is passed through 150 plus quality checks. Based on the validation report, the supplier CMRT will be either accepted or might need further follow-ups. Once the supplier CMRTs are available, the report can be generated with a single click. Based on the customer's requirement, the report might be an intermediate report or final report. The only need from the customer is the supplier details. Next slide. This is the login page of the AutoGen CM tool. Next slide. Instant due diligence for the supplier. 150 plus customizable validation criteria based on the customer requirement. User-friendly interface. In-depth analysis. Effortless uploading for the suppliers. Consolidated CMRT is ready with one click that rolls up thousands plus smelters and generates output in a CMRT template, which is nothing but RMI CMRT template. Latest version is 6.1. Let's see the process flow of API AutoGen CM. First, we need to upload the supplier details with respective contact information. Second, the suppliers will be requested for CMRT submission through the portal. Third, the supplier submitted CMRT through the link provided will be captured, or we can manually add the supplier CMRT received through email. Fourth, The uploaded supplier CMRT will be automatically validated by API software. If there are any errors or warnings in the submitted CMRT, that will be shown in the exception report. Fifth and finally, the report can be consolidated in a single click irrespective of smelters. Next slide. Let's jump into the live demo of API AutoGen CM. I'm just logging in. This is API AutoGen CM's dashboard. This shows this is the master metrics, supplier statistics by scope, supplier CMRT statistics, 3TG statistics, company level statistics, and finally smelter consolidation statistics. Now, smelters RMI reference list. This screen is to upload smelter database from RMI. This displays publicly available smelter information, and paid is also available for the customers who have the RMI database. Next is smelters revision history. This is also publicly available in RMI. For example, CID 002587 has been implemented on 2015 and it has been revised on 21 with the name correction. So these are information will be incorporated in the tool. Next, if you want to search any specific smelters ID that who have been reported in your supply chain, can be done here. Say for example, CID 002763. If you want to search means just click on search here. It will display the supply name, Matrix Plastic Limited and Omega Metals have reported 2763. Now I'm going to show how we can contact the suppliers through AutoGen CM. For that, first we need to upload the supplier list with respective contact information in the supplier list. And then suppliers, contact suppliers. After selecting the required mail IDs, we can send email, which is a pre-uploaded template, or we can modify the content as per the requirement and send mail. Now I'm going to show how we can upload the CMRT using the unique link. Upon opening the CMRT link, it will ask you for your credentials. After logging in, you will find all the supplier details in the respective field. Supplier name and assessment, customer name it is not editable, and user notes is editable. On the left hand side, you can see some useful resources about config minerals. Supplier can refer the blogs, webinars, videos for quick reference. This screen can be used to upload the CMRT template and then submit it to complete the process. Choose file. I'm going to upload a demo file into that. It will take a minute. This box will pop up if the company name in the CMRT file and the supplier list do not match. I will click on yes here. It's undergoing 150 plus validation criteria. This signifies that your CMRT has been uploaded successfully and you will be logged out from the tool. And you also receive an email stating that your CMRT has been uploaded successfully into the CMCS software. Now I will switch over to view supplier CMRT to show the uploaded file. For that, suppliers, view supplier CMRT. The moment supplier upload the CMRT, an instant report from the AutoGen will be displayed here. This is 12. This has 12 critical error, 0 major error, 1 warning, and 3 infos. Clicking on the analysis tab, Different sections of the CMRT files are present in separate tabs. Company information, declaration scope, question 1 to question 8, company level, question 8 to question H, smelter list that has been provided in the tool, in the CMRT, product list that is available in the CMRT, which is displayed here. And if any discrepancy is in the uploaded file, that will be displayed in the exception report. The exception report includes not only the missing mandatory field, but also logical questions, links between Q3, Q6, Q3, Q7, and Q1 and Q2, etc. For example, Q1 has no value. This field shows the critical error and it is mandatory to fill the function. And Q16 now and Q2 within is S, and Q17 is S and Q16 has no value. So these are some interlinked questions and mandatory fields are not filled out in this template. And for the smelter list, you can just scroll to the right to see the status of that smelter's ID. So this shows that it is not RMI certified, but this shows it is RMI certified. But why it is appear here means there is a mismatch between the selected metal and smelter ID. Please recheck and update accordingly. We can just scroll down to the right. So it shows that there is no smelters information, only the IDs are present. That's why it's appear here. These error will need additional follow-up with the suppliers. Product list if available. Now I will change the status according to the customer's requirement. We have 5 different types of status: accepted, rejected, non-compliant smelters, and rejected. Level 1 fail, follow with the acceptance. Based on the customer requirement, I will update the status. User notes for the users. A results tab can be used to send a feedback mail. Click to send feedback. The errors from the exception message will be populated here. The content present for the mail can be modified. This is the header, and these are the exception messages, and these are the footers. I'm clicking the checkbox, send mail. So this shows a contact mail and CC mail from the uploaded supply CMRT. In the uploaded supply CMRT, from email contact email will be displayed, and from email authorizer, CC email will be displayed. I'm clicking send email. So the receiver who upload the supply CMRT and the mail ID present in the CMRT will go to them. I'm just opening that mail. So these are the mail content that the suppliers needs additional follow-up, and we will attach, and there is an attachment. It shows in the declaration tab and the smelter list, which have the exception message and the status column. Now I'm going to show how we upload the CMRT manually into the tool. For that, suppliers, upload supply CMRT. We need to select the supplier name and choose the appropriate CMRT template, and finally click on upload. Since it is a demo file, I'm clicking yes here. This shows that the CMRT has been validated and generate report has been done. So I'm clicking on yes here. It's taken to the analysis screen, and the same process repeat. So this is mainly for the suppliers who have sent their CMRT through email. Declaration scope, company level, smelter list, product list, exception report for declaration, smelter list and product list, status, user notes and result. The same click to send feedback will appear. Now I'm going to show the exception admin that contains 150 plus validation criteria. For that, my CMRT exception admin. So these are the exception admins. Based on the customer requirement, we can toggle the validation criteria, switch it on or switch it off. Once all the supplier CMRTs are received, we can get the consolidated file from this window. For that, my CMRT, roll up consolidate. There are 3 ways we can consolidate the CMRTs. Option 1, select all the suppliers and click consolidate. It will consolidate all the supply CMRTs. Option 2, we can select the specific CMRTs and then click consolidate. It will consolidate only those specific CMRTs. Option 3, this is a beautiful and unique feature that APA AutoGen CM software has, that is consolidating the CMRTs for the selected part numbers or a bill of material. For example, if you supplying 30 bill of material to General Motors and you have the bill of materials with a child part and their respective supply details, you can give that as an input to AutoGen CM initially. If you want to report smelters associated with those bombs, just enter the bomb number and here and hit search. You will see the respective supply names associated with the bomb and hit on consolidating smelters associated with these bomb. It will consolidate and print the numbers in the final CMRT report. This helps in reducing a lot of manual work. Suppose if I don't need this part number to be consolidated, means we can delete it and search again to display only those part numbers. I'm going to consolidate all the 4 part numbers. So click on the upper checkbox and consolidate. This shows that successfully it has been consolidated. Clicking OK. This is a consolidated CMRT report. I download it now. RMI reference report is a unique feature in our AutoGen CM. It automatically fills the declaration tab, smelter list, product list based on the consolidated report. I just downloading it. In the meantime, I just open the consolidated file. We can see the consolidation of all supplier CMRT for the declaration tab. The next tab is a raw smelter list. This is a cumulative list of the smelter list tab. These are the smelters and respective supply name will be appearing in the R column. The next tab is a unique smelters ID that are captured from the raw smelter list. So these are the unique smelters ID. The smelters ID from the intermediate will be cross-verified with the smelter master to get exact status in the final smelter list. The product list contains a list of part numbers that have been mentioned in the supplier CMRTs. The list of CMRTs that were consolidated in the roll-up screen will be populated here. The smelter complaint tab lists out the smelters which requires additional follow-up because these are not RMI certified yet. The last tab is the part number which displays the suppliers list concerning the part numbers. So we have searched only 4 part numbers and 4 consolidated files will be consolidated. Now I open the RMI reference template. So in the declaration tab, company information will be filled out from the input data. From question 1 to question 8 will be filled out from the supplier CMRT on the consolidation file. And question A to H will be filled out based on the input data that was been requested by the customers. Smelter list tab. This is a combination of final smelter list and a smelter complaint tab. And product list that a CMRT has been consolidated with respective part numbers will be displayed here. And you can check in the checker that there is no red color, all are green. So it is completely a 100% report. So you can just directly download from the tool and submit it to the customer. Thank you. I request Karen to conclude.
Thank you very much, Rajiv. That was great information. And thank you, Sri, for your insight and overview into the CMRT form submit process. Now let's recap on what we have shown so far. Next slide. As noted, conflict mineral reporting is mandatory for all companies that are listed on the US Stock Exchange through the SEC. You may receive a conflict minerals request even though you're not publicly traded, but that's okay. Sometimes your customer or end customer is publicly traded and they require that, so you're still obligated to provide the conflict mineral information. It is mandatory for many in-scope companies in the European Union as of January 2021. So the same conflict minerals reporting forms can be used for both the Europe and US regions. So that's some good news, is you can use the same form for both. But the bad news is the form is very complicated, as noted, with over 150 different criteria to make sure that it's filled out properly. But APA AutoGen conflict minerals software automates this process and makes it much, much easier for you. You can use it as part of your team, or you can have a turnkey solution where APA can do the work for you and follow up with your suppliers for you. The AutoGen CM software is available for 3TG as well as some other minerals such as cobalt, which is being considered to be added as a conflict mineral. Next slide. And please note that APA does a lot more than just conflict minerals. We have our conflict minerals software solution, but we also, for the automotive industry, have an IMDS filing solution. For Europe, we have REACH, SKIP, and RoHS software solutions. And for California, we have a Prop 65 solution. Then within the US, if there's any specific state or local regulations, you can have those easily managed through our SIBS product. Next slide. And now there'll be a survey at the end that we would kindly ask you to complete so that we can improve our webinars and keep you better informed. Next, we'll turn things over to Sri to do a Q&A session. Next slide, Sri.
Thank you, Karen. That was a good conclusion. There are a few questions, both whoever is listed in the stock exchange, and for them it is and whoever is listed in the stock exchange and have the filing obligations, for them it is applicable. Whereas EU conflict minerals, it is applicable only to the upstream. So when I say upstream, that is the mining level and the trader level and the smelter and refiner level. Till that particular level, it is applicable. It is not applicable to the downstream users such as component or assembly makers or even the OEs. It is not applicable. However, due to the globalization and one form, same CMRT form is used by all the companies. So you might be receiving CMRT request even from the EU companies as well. But in reality, downstream users may not have the, do not have the, regulatory requirements to meet the EU conflict minerals need. There is another question: is sourcing from DRC and adjoining countries or covered countries is against the law? No, not at all. Sourcing of conflict minerals from DRC and are the cover countries is not at all against the law. The whole objective of this entire exercise is to bring the transparency in the supply chain, and especially in the United States, where the publicly traded companies are using the public funds and in expanding their business. So every penny that they spend should be ethical. So that's the reason anything which and if they find any illegal activity in the mining, and that means that mines, whatever they are supplying the raw material to the smelters, are not following ethical practices. If your supplier is sourcing from, if your supplier or your sub supplier is sourcing from that particular smelter, it is something like a blood on the diamond. So that's the reason we should the company which is uh, sourcing from such smelters should be reported in the SEC filing as a specialized disclosure report. Even though it is not against the rule, when the public reads it, they feel, yeah, this is not an RMI certified smelter, so this is not good, this is not a good practice, and they may have impact on the business. The whole exercise is to bring the transparency, make all the smelters RMI certified. It is like an ISO certification that makes the smelter compliant and follow due diligence, diligent practices. Yeah, there is one more question that is coming up. Is it mandatory to report the cobalt? Is it a government obligation? No, as on date, there's no imperative regulatory requirements for cobalt, but it is always good practice to abide by the regulations and make this world. I would say, your customer may ask for cobalt requirement, but in reality, it is not. It is an voluntary requirement as per regulation. It is only 3 TG at this juncture, even in the EU as well as uh, US. But cobalt and mica are being considered. Not only cobalt and mica. In future, there may be many more minerals that may be considered. So we should be prepared. Supply chain should be prepared to answer those requirements. Yeah, that's all I have, Karen.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for participating in our webinar today. Next slide. For those of you who need to reach us, please feel free to reach out at compliance@apaengineering.com. We are at your service regarding conflict minerals and any other compliance issues that you may have. This can range from safety data sheets to Prop 65 and everything in between. Thank you again. You will have a survey at the end. We again ask you to please complete that survey. And it has been a pleasure presenting this webinar to you today. We will see you next time. Thank you.